7 days.
He's the best we have.
The wait is over. The world is yours.
James Bond is here.
Sit tight.
I have to get back, or somebody's gonna have my butt.
First things first.
Why am I suddenly worried I'm not carrying enough insurance?
On November 19th, the world is not enough.
Welcome to the show, everyone. My name is David Petrangelo, and I don't need an Apple Watch. I have a Dart Watch, and I can take you down. Out of my way, henchmen. I have some phones to tap, 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 and a story to progress through that I totally do not understand or remember. And of course, with me today, Jiggy Lookback.
Yeah, well, my watch has a laser. Pew, 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 pew. I
Tap,
cut
tap,
locks
pew, pew, pew.
and, various other small things.
And of course, this week we are bringing on what I would who I would consider a Bond expert or a huge Bond fan, at least.
Oh, you honor me.
Oh,
fan, lover, not expert. That's how I classify
lover,
myself.
not expert. Yeah, I think I've heard that in my household before as well. Josh from the Still Loading podcast this year. Thank you for coming on the show, and welcome back, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. My watch also has a little doodad, a doohickey, and it's a stunner. It's a laser. Not a laser. I'm sorry. It's a lightning bolt that if you keep hitting the Z button while zapping, you can punch people in the face at the same time while zapping. That's how awesome my watch is.
That's a useful feature.
It is a useful feature. I did not use it that way, but that is a multifaceted, excellent way of taking advantage of our little watches. Of course, if any of that made any sense to anybody, we are playing 007, The World Is Not Enough. That is our first-person shooter of choice at the moment. Now, Josh, this is something that that you suggested that you wanted to play, I think, like months ago. I think we recorded the three of us recorded the Toy Story episode a little bit less than a year ago, but and at that time we were like, okay, we got to do this again. Let's find a game. I think maybe, a couple weeks later or something like that, you're like, if the other 007 game comes up, I know you've done Goldeneye, but if the other 007 game comes up, you gotta ring me in, and here we are. So like, just to get going right off the bat, why this game? Like, why this game in particular?
So this was my first Bond game that I ever played. Everyone starts with a Goldeneye, and I low-key have the hot take that this is a better game than Goldeneye.
Okay.
I think replaying it now, I think the level design isn't quite as good, but we'll get into all that. I think the level design is more mixed. There's like some levels where I'm like, I really, really like, and I like how it's designed. And there are others that are just a little bit kind of meh. But by and large, I still like this more. And I think it's more, after replaying it for this episode, it's definitely a little bit more nostalgia. But I played this game so much as a kid. This was also one of the first James Bond games that had AI bots in it when you play multiplayer, unlike GoldenEye, which did not have it, though I always thought it was Al bots, and I was confused. I was like, who the hell is Al? I didn't know what they were talking about.
Maybe
Die, Albot.
Die, Al, die. Maybe it's Al from Al's Toy Barn. Maybe that's
right. Bringing back that Toy Story reference. And I have a very specific memory. So I was playing multiplayer with my friend. It was me and my friend Justin, and we were playing against good old Al and his bots, two of the bots. And we, at the time, it was like that eight. I was going to say it was probably like 13 or 14. And you're at that age, you're always trying to fit in with your friends. Like if you have that one friend that you admire, you're trying to match all your likes and dislikes to theirs. And so at
or your
that time,
friend's older brother or sister,
pretty much.
Like
well,
that's
it's kind of like that.
Yeah.
It was kind of like that relationship. I viewed him almost as like an older brother.
Gotcha.
And he was big into classic rock, and I had not really gotten into it at that point in time. And so I was looking through my dad's CDs to see like what could we listen to while playing World Is Not Enough multiplayer, and we found a Beatles album. So we were listening to the Beatles, and he wasn't like a huge Beatles fan, but he's like, it's classic rock, so this is close enough. And we're playing the Istanbul level, and we were playing with all explosives. So you only had grenade launchers and the laser guided rocket launchers and all that other stuff. And we were playing it, and the song Love Me Do was on. So every time you hear Love, Love Me Do, we just blow the hell out of some dude flying across the screen, explosions everywhere. And meanwhile, this song's going on in the background about Love, Love Me Do. And we also listened to Daft Punk a lot. I think we put Around the World on repeat for like 2 hours straight while playing this game.
Yes.
I have very vivid memories of playing this game, and playing the single player campaign, which is I did in preparation for this episode, brought back a ton of the memories of it. I actually still really love I want to say it's the 6th mission. It's a little bit tricky, but it's Electra's compound. It's Electra's like villa, and you have to escape, and it's the stealth mission. I remember as a kid that was like fucking impossible for me. I could not beat that level for the life of me, and it still is pretty hard this day. It's a tough level. But I like that it still felt kind of naturalish. Like a lot of times when games try to mix up between stealth and action, it feels like that juxtaposition is a little jarring. This one, it didn't feel like that for me, but I will get into all that. But that's like my memories leading up to it. Like that level specifically, the Beatles, Daft Punk, all explosives on Istanbul. There's so many memories surrounding this game. So that's why I wanted to talk about this, because I love this game. And even if listeners and Jiggy and you, Dave, like you don't agree that it's better than GoldenEye, that's fine. I just want to talk about it because I don't think this game gets enough love.
I would agree that it doesn't, because to be honest, growing up and having the 64 and growing up and playing some of the other Bond games or other FPS games that came out a year later, which would be Halo, this would easily get lost in the shuffle for sure. So did I know this existed at the time? Maybe, just because the movie was out, and you just, there was a PlayStation version of this, there was a Game Boy version, so I probably knew there was a game. Did I ever play it? No. So I think you're right. I think it definitely gets lost in the shuffle and definitely is forgotten about, also because it's very late in the life cycle of the console as well, right?
Yep.
So coming out in 2000 is late. Every time we run into a game that's late 99 or coming out in 2000, it's like, oh, I didn't even know this existed, for example, or I didn't even know that people played this, or I definitely moved on at this point, stuff like that. So Jiggy, did you ever play this?
I had this growing up.
You had this? Yep. Oh shit.
And
okay.
What I loved about it was a blue cartridge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I absolutely adored that.
I had a gray one, but I forgot it was a blue one as well.
Yeah. This game I actually have sort of a bitter relationship with, and not because it was anything the game did, but this is one of those games that I let a friend borrow and I never got it back.
No.
So, and I was very salty about it. Oh. Like to this day, when I see that guy, I like I never bring it up, but every time I do it, I'm just like, choke my game.
I want it back. I know that blue plastic is in your house somewhere.
Yeah, right. It's fine.
Amazing.
Just let it go.
Yeah,
it's fine.
I mean, you don't have to. Like, no one's saying you have to. You can.
Well, I'm just quietly holding it in.
Okay,
but he's a good guy. I don't think it's a kid thing. I don't know. Like,
no, I understand
I don't know
that.
where I got that.
I understand that. I still don't let my brother live down that. When we were kids, we kind of shared Pokemon cards, and we had a holographic Zapdos that he lost at a friend's house and never got back. And I will never let him live
quote
it down.
Unquote lost. Yeah.
No, he lost it. I mean, the friend could have kept
That's
it.
What I'm saying.
I don't know. They were church friends, and they claim they like years later they have never found it. So I don't know what happened to it, but I'm still bitter at my brother for doing that.
I mean, fair enough. You know what? Like, me and my brother didn't like it's not like we had multiple Game Boys. We didn't have multiple consoles or any of that kind of. Not many people did, right? Because you just couldn't. Understandably so. But when it came to like a cartridge, for example, like you mentioned Pokemon, you mentioned a blue cartridge, the blue Pokemon game that we had and shared. He went and put an AP on it with a pen because he's no, it's mine. Even though like I got it as like a birthday gift or Christmas gift or something like that, like the year before.
No.
But then once he got to the age like a year and a half, 2 years later to like Pokemon, he's like, I want to play it now. And he went in with pen and like drew on it. And so but I still have it and it still works, but it has AP on it. And it's just like, no. So it's little things like that, and like the back of some of our Game Boy cartridges have little like Sharpies on them that have our initials. Those I have a feeling where
his are crossed out, yours are put above it. Yours are crossed out, his are put above it.
I have a feeling that the Sharpie ones were my parents doing that to stop us from arguing. Because it looks
a very parent move.
Yeah, it's a very parent move. It also looks a little too clean for like a 11-year-old to do. An 11 and 8-year-old to do, so I'm suspecting it was them, but I was yeah.
I'm very envious that you had a brother that was close enough in age to you to do that, because my brother's 8 years younger than me, and when I would give him stuff to play, it would just be destroyed. It's just like I gave him my old Nintendo DS, like my original DS when I got a DS Lite. He like. Within a week, he dropped it and the hinge was just busted. And I was like, I've had this thing for years and you broke it in a day, basically.
The only thing my brother ended up like breaking consistently was because I think he was just like one of those roughhouse kids when he was, 5, 6 years old, like when he was really young, was he would bust up all the Lego sets that we had. Like he would just come in and like Godzilla everything that I built, like that kind of thing. So having an actual set was not really a thing for us. It was like, here's a bunch of Lego. If it breaks, go build whatever you want, because having a set wouldn't last. It would just be destroyed within probably like a week, like you're saying.
Brothers.
Oh, brother. So I have no experience playing this game. I don't know. The world's not enough is, I said before we hit record, the movie even I kind of forgot about. And in my little quip at the beginning, I don't know what the hell the story is based on playing this game. I'm so confused as to what's going on.
The game does an awful job at telling the basic plot of the movie. And you're right, the game does an absolutely awful job of telling the story of the movie. Essentially the plot of the movie is that it's actually like the beginning is a surprisingly complex setup, but in a nutshell, Bond is trying to stop this villain named Renard, where he there's so much to go. I'm trying to like condense it into like a few sentences without getting without going on like a 4-minute long rant. But essentially, there was this villain Bond and here. Let's do it this way. The opening of the movie, the mission that is the first mission of the game, Bond is retrieving money from this British rich dude named Sir Robert King, who's friends with his boss M. And
that's the relationship. Okay.
Yes, they have though you get the idea from the movie that they're kind of a little bit more than friends. You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
But it's never really.
Okay, Tony Soprano.
I don't know why I went there with it, but you get the idea that M and Sir Robert were kind of a bit.
They got
of
a history.
Thing. Yeah. So Bond retrieves the money, and then what happens is Bond finds that basically the money was actually a bomb. There's a bomb rigged to it where basically
it goes off,
there was a detonator in Sir Robert's lapel that triggered the bomb to go off, and it exploded. And so now they're trying to figure out who murdered Sir Robert King. And Bond finds out in the movie that the amount of money that he was taken is suspicious, or the amount of money that was retrieved back to him was suspicious because prior to the events of the movie, Sir Robert's daughter Electra was kidnapped by this terrorist named Renard, and the ransom amount for his daughter is the exact same amount of money that was returned to him I
did not get that.
Oh, they don't tell you in the movie at all. In the
okay, in the game they definitely
tell you in the movie.
it just moves around.
No, they tell you in the movie. They just don't tell you in the game in the slightest.
Yeah,
And
I get
so
it. You can't get everything. I understand that, but
so you think that he's going after Renard and he's going to protect Elektra because out of the 3 people who were involved in the kidnapping, King, M, and Renard or Elektra is the only one he hasn't gotten to yet because King is dead, MI6 is humiliated, so he gets M for that, and so Elektra is the last piece of that. So Bond goes to protect her. Do you care? Spoiler alert for the movie, unless do you guys care about spoilers?
Nope.
no.
All right. The spoiler for the movie is that you find out Elektra was actually the villain the whole time. When she was kidnapped by Renard, he didn't turn her, she turned him and got him to kind of like bend to her will. And so what's happening in the present day after Sir Robert's murdered, she's taken over her father's company and they're building a pipeline from the west to the east.
Pipeline, yeah.
And there are 3 competing pipelines. So hers is the only one not going through Istanbul, and all the other 3 are going to go through Istanbul. So that's why there's this whole nuclear reactor, this nuclear submarine in Istanbul. Her whole plan is to get Renard to essentially commit suicide by blowing up a nuclear sub in Istanbul, rendering all the other pipelines useless and hers super wealthy. And I said I wouldn't take too long, and I did take too long. That's the plot of the movie. It's a lot better when it's in the movie, and the actress who plays Elektra, Sophie Marceau, is freaking amazing. She is so good because she sells that turn so easily. Like you don't see it coming the first time you watch it. At least I didn't.
Well,
it's really good
with something like that. Yeah, you have to be able to pull that off, right? Because it's like the Bond girl being the villain. Yeah, maybe we've seen it a couple times, or that one of the Bond girls is involved with the villain. It happens all the time, right? But then the fact that she's the action. Well, aren't there a couple like he gets in, like Bond gets and sleeps with some of the women that are
not any of the main Bond, like
main villains, villains. Usually that's not the case.
Never the main villains, and very, very not even really henchmen. In the second Bond movie, he sleeps. The Bond girl is Tatiana Romanova, and she's a Russian agent who doesn't know that she's working for like the evil organization Spectre, but she is. Like she's kind of
trying to think of something. Yeah,
he does sleep with other women who could be considered Bond girls, and they are villains, but they're not like the main Bond girl of the movie. That's
right. That's right. Yeah. That's true.
And there's never been like a one who you thought was going to be a main Bond girl, only to turn out that she was the villain of the movie.
Right.
And that's what I think is so smart about the World's Not Enough. I will die on the hill that The World's Not Enough is a much better movie than people give it credit for. People shit all over it because Denise Richards is not good in the movie. But if you kind of take that part out, if you kind of take her stuff out, it's a pretty damn good movie. Anyway, I'm going on too long. I apologize. I love this movie and game.
No, it's fine. It's totally fine. It's good because like I said, I didn't quite pick up on all the story stuff, and it was one of the points that I needed to make. The fact that I didn't quite understand what was going on at an event. Like I tried to read the text before all the missions. I'm like, okay, I kind of get it. And like, it doesn't, I get it. There's only so much you can put on a cartridge. I get it.
Speaking of so much you can put on a cartridge, what I just saw, I did not notice while I was playing.
Yeah.
But you were just in the pause menu, I believe.
Yeah.
And at the top of it, you see Motorola.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, hardcore advertisement.
Product placement, baby.
Yeah, you got it in a Bond movie. It's a given, right? Bond
it's
product.
Like it went into my subconscious then because I did not see it at all while I was playing. And I'll be like, man, I could really go for something Motorola related.
I also have a Motorola watch. I wanted to mention a little bit about the company that made this game. I wrote down a couple notes about that because Eurocom is the company, which I recognized and published by EA. So it's like EA kind of ran the show sort of idea, or at least, partially. I wanted to mention them because I recognized the logo, but I was in the name, but I'm like, what did they make? And they had their hands in a ton of licensed stuff, which was really cool. What did I wrote down? I wrote down for the 64, they did, Duke Nukem 64 is not necessarily a licensed game, but they also did War Gods. They did the Cruisin' World game. And then early NES and arcade and Game Gear and stuff, they did The Jungle Book, Lethal Weapon, and Earthworm Jim. And these are developed games, and that's just like half the stuff that they did. And this is all early 90s to early 2000s. And this was the last game they did on the N64, was The World Is Not Enough. They were supposed to be making a different Bond game. And instead they were supposed to be making a different first-person game that was supposed to be developed with a 3D engine for the GameCube. And then EA is like, hey, we're going to make another Bond game. We're going to make you do it on the N64. So they made this at the same time, or at least started developing this at the same time that they were making Mortal Kombat 4, which I've also done an episode on, and is also on the N64, and is not a very good game.
Yeah.
Sadly, it is probably like the worst Mortal Kombat game. Partially because it's just like a gimmick of like having 3D space. It doesn't add anything to the game. You might as well just play a 2D. You might as well just play 3, or play Gold, which I think is just straight up 2D anyways. Or Gold or Trilogy. That's a Trilogy. But yeah, so they've done a bunch of games, a bunch of good games. You know, Earthworm Jim, for example, and Game Gear. The Jungle Book game I kind of remember on Sega and SNES, like, you know, typical 2D platformers at the time. But I think that the engine they ended up developing, or were supposed to be developing for GameCube, and made this game instead, largely, speaking of the gameplay of it, worked. I think that the engine here, the way things control, the way it looks, largely is pretty good. I don't know if I wanted to play this and then play GoldenEye immediately after and just play a couple stages. I know obviously it's a 4-year difference, different companies, different technology, really, honestly, at the time. But I wanted to compare the two. This game kind of feels like it would be a very early PlayStation 2 game or very late PlayStation 1 game, which obviously kind of is because it's around that same time. But this felt more advanced than a lot of other N64 games when I was playing it. I don't know. I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but I was very impressed, especially early on. I was impressed at how smooth everything ran, and I had no hitches the entire time playing this, and I had zero issue in any of the stages and zero issue with any of the controls, which is sometimes hard to do with a first-person game on the 64.
I will say I had quite a few lag spikes.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, explosions and things.
Oh, I had none.
Oh yeah, it would dip.
Were you playing on OG hardware, Jiggy?
Yeah.
That would probably be the reason, because I had similar issues as well. I think since Dave, you said you were playing on an emulator, I think it probably handled on
the original hardware though, on the EverDrive. So I was technically, so yes, it was a ROM, it was emulated, but it was on the original hardware. I don't know, maybe I just didn't run into that exact moment, or maybe there was something else that didn't trigger it, but nothing that I can think of. What's that?
The ski level. That's one that popped.
Oh, you know what? The ski level might have actually done that to me. Yeah, now that I think about it.
Tough.
Yeah, because it's constantly moving, right? So yeah.
Yeah, and you trigger any explosion, it's just like it starts chugging.
Yeah, that might have been one.
I mean, generally speaking, it ran solid.
Yeah.
I'm used to it on the N64, I guess. I think the whole like quick selection with items and stuff, while it's wonky at first, does add to that feel of like, oh, this feels a little like progression over GoldenEye, because you have like gadgets and things that you can cycle through quickly. I really like that.
Yeah, I forgot you could do that on when I was replaying, because I think you hold B down and then hit A, and it lets you cycle through the gadgets, right?
Yeah, it's a little wonky. But
is that what you do? Because I never did that with the gadgets the entire time.
I forgot about it.
I always went to the menu. Yeah.
So, and it's funny because like I don't know if the listeners will be able to see this, but we have the game up and like a little bit of Dave's gameplay up on the background.
This is me turning it on for the first time and hitting record. So I'm also trying to figure out what the hell the game is even just doing or wanting me to do.
one of my favorite things that I noticed you were struggling with, and I understand why,
Mm-hmm.
because it's hyper specific. The swipe card, you have to actually aim at the very specific at the actual swipe pad. If you're aiming literally a pixel to the left or right, and you're not on that pad, you won't get it. Now, what's funny about that, because the aiming reticule has to be on that pad. I remember as a kid, I tested it out. When you use the swipe card gadget, if you keep your aiming reticule on that thing and just back straight up, go down the hallway, as long as you don't go around the corner and you have not moved that reticule, hit the Z button to swipe the card, it'll open the door still, even though you are like 40 feet away from the door and the swipe pad at that
Maybe
point.
he's like Gambit and he's throwing the card and you just don't see it. He's
Right?
just like, X-Men.
Totally gonna try that.
Yeah, now I should try that. Yeah.
It was really funny. I also like there's a huge variety of gadgets in this. Like there's the safe cracker, you get X-ray glasses in later levels, you get phone taps, and a lot of the gadgets they don't really, like, the watch does a lot of different things, and obviously the X-ray glasses and the safe cracker do things. It opens things up, but like the phone tap, I mean, for all intents and purposes, it's no different than placing a sticker on a wall. Like, you're just going up to a phone and hitting the Z button with the phone tap, and it's like, hey, you tap the phone. So, but the fact that you have all these things, I think this game does a good job at making you feel like James Bond, because you are tapping phone lines, you're sneaking into different areas of the buildings that you're not supposed to. You have to use keypad decryptors and steal key cards off of guards, and yeah, there's moments where you don't go stealthy, but like the first mission of the game, right? You're not stealthy in the beginning, and this is very different from the movie. I won't compare the movie to the game the whole time, otherwise we'd be here for 6 hours. But the top, like, you're on the second floor of a bank and you're having to get Sir Robert's money, and you can also get a couple extra documents depending on which difficulty you play on, that adds objectives.
Yeah,
right?
I think I was on the middle difficulty, I think, for
And
most of
cool,
the game. Yeah.
Once you get what you need and you leave the second floor, as long as you don't attack the guards and you walk out unarmed, they don't do a thing to you.
Yeah,
so
which
it shows
I
you
did
from the
not
first
do,
level.
clearly.
Yeah, well, yeah. In the video we're watching now, you're zapping people with your stun gun,
And I'm like, I'm out of here.
If you actually punched any of them, you would have failed the mission, which is the funny part.
I think I zapped one of the guards with the watch. I think that's what happened.
Well,
That's
and it's
so
funny because in the game, you are talking to this banker and you're trying to get him to give over the money. He says, "No, I'm not going to give it over, whatever,"
Right.
and tries to kill you. And then you shoot him, and then the flashbang goes off. The flashbang gun that you get at the beginning goes off, and then you have to kill everyone and kill all the bad guys and run away with King's money and escape. Right? In the movie, Bond doesn't actually leave that dude's office. He is talking to him, and the flashbang causes a distraction, which makes a lot more fucking sense than Bond just shooting the dude.
Yeah.
The flashbang calls actually, I'm sorry, Bond doesn't shoot the dude. The cigar girl shoots the guy. Bond blows up the flashbang, which is the detonator is in his glasses, which was a really cool thing in the movie. He hits a button on the side of his glasses. It blows up the flashbang pistol on the desk. That causes a distraction. He takes out 2 guards, and then he interrogates the banker. That girl that kills him in the game also kills him in the movie, but by a knife in the back, and then she runs away and Bond has to chase after her, and that's kind of like the cold opening to an extent, or part of the cold opening. But he has to get out now because people hear gunshots. They're in the middle of a bank. And he rips off the blinds, and he takes the cords from the blinds and ties them all together into like a little bit of a rappelling line, a rope line. He ties it around the one bad guy's waist that he knocks out, and then he slings it over the side of the building and rappels down the side of the bank. And it doesn't make any fucking sense. I don't think
like
that
Rapunzel,
the blind well, I don't think the blinds, like, it's the thin rope. It's not like it's a
thin rope.
piece.
Oh, okay.
It's like when you pull at the blinds.
Yeah,
and
that
it's
would
got
never
the thin
hold your weight. No way.
Yeah. And in the
Spider
game, it's at least like, or in the movie, excuse me, it's at least like they're like a half-inch thick, but it makes no sense. He's on like the 3rd floor in the movie. There's no way they're long enough for him to do that. Anyway, as a kid though, that opening was fucking awesome. And one thing I like that this game does is that it takes those elements from the movie and expands upon them. I don't think it does it as good as Goldeneye did. I think Goldeneye kept it a lot more similar to the movie, and where they expanded to pad out the game, they added story elements to it. So like you have like those interstitial missions where you're finding out what happened at Severnaya.
Yeah,
like Bond
yeah.
went to Severnaya before. That was cool. In this, you don't
Just
really.
shooting guards. I don't know who to shoot because
Yeah.
I don't understand what's going on.
I
To be
mean,
fair, very
they
easy to
do
do.
tell you that
Yeah.
the MI6 is under attack, and you open up a door, and the guard isn't even shooting at you. You're like, I'm going to shoot him anyway.
But he's got a gun. I
Mr.
don't
Bond.
know. Yeah, he's got a gun. Shoot him.
Don't spook me.
But it's this. I like how this game expands it out. Like even in this segment, like in the second mission, in the movie, this is like Bond just literally runs down to Q's office and that's about it. That's literally like he runs down to try to stop King from blowing up the money, and he doesn't make it, of course, and then he has to run out. He sees that like the girl that murdered the banker is conveniently outside on the Thames River, seeing the explosion hole in the wall where King used to be, and so then he goes after her. And the weirdest thing ever, like you know how like at the end of the second mission, Bond gets a boat and chases after the girl, and then the third mission is like he crashes the boat. In the movie that happens too, but it's a full boat chase, so they don't do a boat chase level. They kind of
I was so ready for a boat chase level. They cue it up, and I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be great!" And then he just drives it onto the land. I was like, "Dude, first of all, what are you doing? You just ruined your super cool boat, and also like, let me drive the boat, man. Come on." I would have loved that.
What's weird about that boat in the movie is that where it's located in MI6, there's a freaking wet dock on like the third floor of MI6. Like the boat's just chilling, and Bond drives it out of a hole in the wall onto the Thames River. I'm like, in what world? Like why would they even bother with a wet dock in the middle of the third floor? Like it doesn't make any sense. There's
Something about
like
the
a
third
little
floor. They
water.
really like their third floors and jumping out of windows, I guess.
I mean, I don't know if it was the third floor. It could have been the second or fourth or something. I'm just kind of.
But like,
Still, it's weird.
But why?
It's very odd.
Yeah.
Why not?
Why not? I mean, if you're James Bond, why not? Like
Yes,
that's true.
Why not?
Yeah. I really liked this second level. I played it a couple times because I think I failed or died a couple times. So this one was good. Like like you're saying that it pads out compared to the movie and stuff. I liked,
but in a good way.
No, in a good way. I definitely think in a good way. Because there's no map available to you, the game kind of says, "Hey, check the map on the wall," or something like that, or in the building. Someone says something about look at the security map or something like that, and one of the walls has a map. You sort of say, "Oh, I got to go left or right, or maybe I have to go down here." The signs on the wall tell you what direction you generally have to go. You don't have to think about it that much, even though we're used to always having a map to pull up in your menu or having a HUD that has a map in the top corner. This doesn't have that, and yet you're still able to go back and forth. Oh, and she's dead. I didn't even know that guy was there.
I never even bother going back into M's office. And so when in your playthrough here of you going back in, like, why are you doing that? And I didn't even know there would be someone that shows up and is just chilling there.
I thought you had
to.
Depends on the difficulty you picked. Because I didn't have that mission, and it just popped up the mission for you. It said she popped up, and Moneypenny was like, "M has been taken hostage. Go save her." Because I never had to do that. I also really liked this mission, though. I thought it was really cool. I will say I had one super minor complaint that really didn't affect the gameplay.
Okay.
But it's something I noticed, and I kind of noticed from then on out.
It was the Motorola watch, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't the Motorola watch. What it was is when going downstairs, the like field of vision feels off.
I agree with you on that.
You look upward too much. Like you're not looking down as you're heading down, really. It's almost like you want to see that full hand and your gun and a little space underneath, but you're seeing like the very top of the gun, and then you get a lot of headroom up here, right?
Because it's trying to, because the game's trying to get you to I guess see down the stairs at a certain point without you having to do the aiming. I guess, but it takes too long for that to happen. You're like halfway down the
Yeah.
stairs before it adjusts.
Yeah.
I noticed that too. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. If there wasn't the auto targeting system that it has,
Oops.
you would fail miserably constantly.
That's what you
even
talk
the-
about. What did you think about the auto aim stuff or the auto, yeah, I guess it's auto aim. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually
What
think
else
it makes the game playable. Because on like Goldeneye, it's a lot harder to aim it. I haven't played Goldeneye, and I don't know how good the auto aim is on that, but I actually think this makes it
minimal.
pretty worth.
It's pretty minimal.
I think that actually works to this game's benefit because since it is on the N64 and you don't have the second joystick to kind of help with your accuracy, it really aids a lot to make it a lot more bearable. There is some gimmicks to it, like especially on the skiing level, that's really difficult to do. I think that level is really like it's not the worst level, but it's definitely not one of the stronger ones just for that same reason. It's hard to aim for enemies even with the auto aim because of how that level works. But real quick, what you were saying, Jakey, about the stairs, one thing I wanted to comment, and then I'll throw it back over to you guys for what your thoughts on the auto aim. The stairs in the second level, I'm with you that they feel a little off, but specifically, it's almost like you feel like you're floating down them a little bit too much because there was a time where I was using the C buttons to strafe, right? And, strafing around the corner so I could keep looking at the center. And when that happens, if you are not paying attention to how far away you are from the wall, you can just fall over the railing. The railing doesn't keep you on the stairwell at all. I died one or two times because
no.
I went over the railing, fell down, even though I was trying to hug the wall around the steps. It was really weird.
Yeah, the strafing is also a key too. I think that so the auto aim and the strafing and stuff. Jiggy, I want to ask you what you thought about it because we haven't played a ton, or I personally have not played a ton of FPS games on this console. GoldenEye being one of them for sure, but the strafing and the controls on this, to me, and the auto aim is part of it. And here I am on the stairs. I think
it's like so much room above.
Yes, tons of room, and he's like sort of almost like just.
Where's your hand, Bond? Okay.
Use the railing, Josh is gonna fall.
Why are those guys pointing their guns at each other? Sorry, I know this is an audio media, but we have
no, but I have the game plan. This is why I put it up here. I can reference it and remember all the shitty stuff that I did.
You guys ever see Get Smart?
Yes,
that like
a while ago.
The Steve Carell, he's like, I'm going to hit you, and I need you to react, make it look convincing. And then he hits him, and he like reacts. He's like, wrong way. That's what just happened. You just shot the guy. He's like toward the wall, and he like turned and he went and fell off the ledge.
Actually, there's some pretty good animations in this when guys die, like when they're on like a railing and stuff. Like saw that a couple times. Like, oh, this is pretty good. They like that. They kind of go like, oh, it's like very cartoony, but at least it's something.
Yeah,
the sound effects of them getting shot. Is like engraved in my memory from a kid. Like I can hear that, and it brings as morbid as it sounds because you're shooting someone to get that sound. It's like visceral joy for me when I hear that sound. Well, I got him.
The other way, like the alternative, or at least the comparison a little bit, is in GoldenEye. The fun of shooting some of the enemies is that it sounded like the bullet was hitting a wall most of the time, like hitting against the wall or something. And then you could mess around with the guys and shoot them in the leg and shoot them in the butt and shoot them in the crotch. Like that you can kind of still do here, but the opportunities don't arise in the same way. So
it's not as in-depth because I specifically went into the bathroom in the train level.
Yeah.
And I actually want to circle back to the auto aiming thing because I find but like I would go into the bathroom stall, I tried to like shoot him in the head, and like, I miss shooting their hats off. I miss those little details. You don't really have that in this game. If you do, I didn't experience it. But that's something I missed that was a detail in GoldenEye. I just thought that was really cool. But going back to the auto aim, I actually found the auto aim generally works fine. I have no problem with it. But I did have a small problem with it, specifically in the train level. When you're going down into like the subway or whatever.
Spot,
Yeah. When you're going down, you have to rescue hostages.
Mhm.
Okay?
Yeah.
And you lock onto the enemies when the hostages are like standing there like in a corner, like whatever, groveling in the corner. You shoot the enemies, and what would happen is I personally I'm used to holding the button or like tapping really fast. Like I'm gonna lay like 4 shots into a guy, right? I'm not gonna do just one and be like, oh, he's done. I'm gonna be like, pew, 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 pew. Like I'm gonna make sure he's out.
Well,
you know?
and if you're
Mhm.
playing
It's
in the even in the middle difficulty, you have to shoot them a couple times.
Yeah.
If you have a basic weapon, like just the
Right.
pistol,
You don't
especially.
know
Yeah.
you don't know what weapon like you expect a shotgun to kill him 1 shot, but it's like I'm gonna do 2 just to be safe.
Yeah.
But what's gonna happen is once they're dead, those hostages run forward to escape.
Mhm.
And what would happen, and I noticed this specifically, okay? There's enemy here, enemy here. I'm putting my hands up, visual demonstration for
Left
those
and
who are
right.
listening. Okay, left and right hand are up. Now imagine left and right hand slightly behind. Okay, those are the hostages. The ones in front, slightly more to the left and right, but in front of them are the enemies. Shoot enemies. Hostages run in front of where the enemies were. So if you're auto locked on and you let off one more stray shot, you kill a hostage, fail the mission, have to start over.
Yeah.
It got
Yeah.
me twice at least.
I did that
It-
in the level, I think, before that, where you're like on the docks or whatever. That happened
Yeah.
to me a couple times because that level specifically was the one that was kicking my ass because I could not figure out where I needed to go. And then I would figure it out, and then I went and shot a hostage by accident in pretty much the same way
Well,
that you said.
The thing about it, the path that the hostage runs in doesn't even make sense.
Yes, exactly.
Because they could have both run the same path. But I watched this girl like go forward and just shoot to the right where that enemy was. Like she almost like glitched out. She's like, and like went over to it and got in my line of sight. I'm like, what?
Why?
What just happened? Like it purposely wanted me to fail. That's what it was trying to do.
There's a couple moments in that level too where like hostages are sprinting away from the chaos, and
Mhm.
since you're so on edge because you don't know where guys are coming from, that all of a sudden you see people just sprinting at you, you're like, oh god, and your twitch
Yeah, you
reflexes go,
react.
and they're
Yes.
hostages, and you're like,
That's-
shit,
yeah.
or civilians or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Real quick, I have to call this out just because it makes me laugh. So in the playback that we have on the screen right now, Dave here in his playback made it to the infirmary, and you saw a doctor, and she goes, "Oh, James," and he says, "Stay in here," right?
Yeah.
In the movie, that doctor is basically a doctor who's supposed to give Bond gets injured in the cold open of the movie, and so he needs to be cleared by medical to get back into the field and do everything right. And he basically seduces her and sleeps with her to get her to give him a clean bill of health in order for him to go back into the field because
Of course,
Bond's
I guess.
course,
Bond's
that's what you do.
because
Bond, I
James
guess.
Bond. Yeah.
because James Bond.
Yeah.
Anyway, the reason I bring it up and the reason it makes me chuckle, it's not because of the thing in the movie. It Bond's a perv, what all that other shit.
Yeah.
Do you know what her name is? Do you know how Bond girl names are known to be a little bit like innuendo-ish? Do you know what her name is in the movie?
Please tell me.
No. Yeah, please. I need to know.
Dr. Molly Warmflash. I don't even know what that's
Oh,
supposed to fucking
God.
mean. Is that like a menopause joke? I don't know. Warm flash.
Warm flash. Maybe the flash makes you feel all warm and cozy inside. Maybe that's what
Oh,
it is.
there's her name, Dr. Warmflash. It shows
Oh.
up.
Yeah, Dr. Warm Flash.
Oh, I didn't
yeah.
even notice that. Oh, I probably just
Dr.
wasn't.
Molly Warmflash. One of the most wild.
That's ridiculous. I mean,
Um,
there's always something, I guess. There's always some of that, but I totally miss that. That's
I mean,
insane.
Molly Warmflash is not the worst. The probably the arguably the worst. And I guess not really spoiler alert, but like content warning. I don't know because some people might not like this, and I can kind of understand it. The Bond girl of the third movie, Goldfinger, is pussy galore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's not even it's not
Yeah.
even trying to be subtle. They're just putting it right on Front Street. In Moonraker, the Bond girl name is Dr. Holly Goodhead.
Yeah.
Like once again,
There's another,
not subtle.
there's
in the
another one
slightest.
that comes to mind too. Maybe
Octopussy.
yeah, probably Octopussy. That's probably what it is. Yeah. But it's like I think that's It's okay. It's fine. It is
No,
what
no,
it is. What are you going to do? It's also the 60s
it's
in a lot
silly
of those
and
movies. so.
yeah. Oh no, I don't actually get mad about it. I just
No,
find
no.
it kind of like it's cringy, but it's like it was the 60s and
cringy.
70s.
Yeah.
That's a good way
It's
to
cringy.
describe it.
That's what it is. They don't do that anymore, thankfully. Though, I mean, Pierce Brosnan wasn't that long ago. You have Dr. Molly Warmflash, and
Pussy Galore, that was Sean Connery's, right?
yeah,
Yeah, that's an older
Because
one.
I
That-
immediately picture Sean Connery. I'm like, Pussy Galore.
yeah, that scene. I'm not.
Just based on how it sounds, yeah.
That the scene too, like where he like I don't even want to say the term woo because he essentially sexually assaults her in the movie. It's really like I remember watching that scene as a kid and being like, this doesn't seem normal.
No, not in those.
But
not in those.
I
movies.
don't mean to bring down the podcast. I just anytime I think of that movie,
Yeah,
I
but
love the movie
but that's
Goldfinger,
James Bond though.
but-
Like that's
Yeah.
that's.
It's-
What's
his
weird is
shtick.
that it's not.
Yeah.
What's weird is that it's not. He has like, don't get me wrong, he's done tons of misogynistic and sexist things throughout all like that. That is
Yeah,
James
yeah.
Bond.
Yeah.
But specifically like sexual assault and blackmail happens like twice in the whole series, and it's in back-to-back movies. It's wild.
Of course.
Anyway,
Of
I
course
don't
it's
need to
Sean-
go
and of
into
course
all
it's
that.
Sean too. So
It is Sean
Sean
Connery, the
Right.
Bond who said it's okay to hit a woman.
Yeah,
I was
right.
gonna
Yeah.
say, he's like, sometimes a woman just needs a good little.
Well, what's wild too
It's horrible.
is
Just a little.
so
just a little.
Sean Connery said that in an interview with Barbara Walters, doubled down on an interview with Barbara Walters about that. As a juxtaposition, Roger Moore, kind of his, not technically his successor, because there was George Lazenby in between, but technically the next big main successor. Roger Moore was also involved in a domestic violence situation, but two of his ex-wives actually domestically assaulted him. Like he was getting assaulted.
So did they
And
run
that
a
tells
fight
you-
club or something? Like what?
I don't know. I mean, but that tells you everything you need to know about the two Bonds. Like Connery
Honestly.
says the one thing, and then Roger Moore's the other.
Yeah. Wow.
Jesus.
What
The
a tangle web we weave.
the warp. That's I yeah. Oh, here's the subway level where I probably also shot a
Yeah, this is it. I want
A
to.
hostage?
This is
Yeah.
the spot. This is the spot with the two hostages. Look at their path. Did you see
Yeah.
their path?
yeah, they're
Yeah.
Where
running
they go?
right in front of you. Well, what are you
Right in
doing?
front of you.
This
Now,
is
The,
not
I
safe.
remember this one too. Right around the corner.
This
Watch the
whole
construction
level
worker.
here also
Oh.
does not happen in the movie. Like in the movie, there's just a boat chase, and he chases after the girl who like was watching the explosion.
Mm.
In
Yeah.
the game here, he he travels across docks, he goes into a subway,
Yeah.
and then he has to stop a bomb in the subway. I actually really like this mission, even though it's a little bit finicky at
too.
first. Oh my god, sorry, I almost had a heart attack watching Dave almost die from a
I
subway
know.
train in his.
I played it way
But
safer.
the first couple
No,
times I
screw it,
was
man.
playing this, when I was playing this level as a kid, I could not figure out where I needed to go.
Mm.
Now as an adult, it's kind of obvious because it's the only well lit thing in the
Right.
entire subway.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
not the entrance that you came in on. But yeah, this mission specifically is where like the third. Yeah, I guess this is the fourth mission actually. The fourth mission here,
Yeah, I think so.
because the third mission is all the docks. The fourth mission is the subway.
Yeah, I guess I just didn't have the recording of that. The other thing
So-
is with this one too was I don't know if it's in this recording or not, or if I recorded it, but one of the times I failed. No, it wasn't this because I think I find the actual bomb in this. I don't know what I did, but the mission failed. It wasn't that I ran out of time; it was something else. And then what this game does, like part of what I think is kind of funny, is that there's like an ending fail scene that plays out.
Yeah.
And then this one in particular, the guards or the policemen that are at the top of the subway are just kind of standing there, and then the explosion goes off, and they just go flying off screen. And I was like, "Whoa!"
That's right. You
I just
killed all them.
Yeah, I just inadvertently murdered a bunch of people. Like, whoa! It was amazing.
This level was the first level when I was playing this game where I thought, wow, that looks really good for a 64 game.
Mm.
Specifically talking about the subway train. If you look
yeah.
at it, if you back up just a
Yeah,
tiny
I'll back
bit,
up.
you
Yeah,
can
to
look at it,
when I was there.
it's
yeah.
got this really cool like motion blur effect on it, and I'm not
Mhm.
sure if it's the textures, if it literally has motion blur as it's going by, but it looks like how you'd imagine a speeding subway.
Yes.
And I haven't seen that on an N64 title, and I
That-
just thought, wow, that's really cool looking.
Yeah, like I'm gonna try and pause it when it goes by.
The first time that I
Like,
noticed it,
I mean, in motion, it looks good, but it's not. I don't know. Maybe it is just
like a blurred texture.
Yeah, blurred texture, but because it's moving, it sort of plays a trick on your eye. You know, like it just. Yeah, it's
really clever art direction.
It's good. Yeah, it's good art direction. And then you play it. You get close or whatever. Rescue for the biscuit, boys. That's how it works.
Well, the thing that I noticed that like when the graphics of this stuck out to me was actually in the first level when there's sunlight coming in through the windows of the one hallway in the bank. I was really surprised by that. It was definitely static. I highly doubt it was actually reactive to what you were doing. But the fact that they had the light coming in, even I think it had to have been somewhat like it not what's the word I'm trying to look for,
dynamic in a way.
Yeah, somewhat, just because whenever you walk through that section the game would lag a little bit. I remember playing on the my N64, the game would actually slow down just a smidge because all this light was coming in from the side, and I don't know if the developers actually put extra effort into that specific spot, but I remember playing it and just being really impressed like now by the lights. Now
it's a good looking game. I think largely it is a very good looking game. I think,
just for the record,
the
slowdown happens with the train too.
When
it's going by, when you walk down that hall. I didn't see it when you were playing.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's the ROM that I used. Maybe that's part of it. That could make a difference sometimes, but yeah, I think they squeezed a decent amount out of this cartridge for sure. I found a quote from I didn't write down the person's name. Where is it here? From Eurocom, one of I guess the team that made it. It's a 2000 interview from IGN, and it said, quote, "We don't think we could push it much more than we have." So
I'm not surprised, man.
Neither am I. Like they went for it and they knew they were going for it, you know, like and even this room here that we're looking at now is just a bathroom, right? But there's a bunch of different textures. The lighting makes sense. It's a big difference in lighting from the hallway you're walking out from. I think like little things like that, you know, there's shading in some of the corners, not just like a flat square. Hey, look, there's a black box on the edge of this wall that happens to be a shadow. Like it's just a little bit more detailed than that. And
you have got to look at your gun that you were just using.
The Magnum.
So
the Magnum.
You when it reloads, okay, and it like almost sort of disassembles and pops back like an actual gun would, right? And then the small detail of the bullet popping out and falling down.
Oh, like when you reload?
I mean, I was just watching that. I was mesmerized. I was like, wow, that's so detailed.
Yeah. And unnecessary, really. Like in a good way.
Yeah.
Well, it's the small attention to detail stuff like that makes the game. It's one of those things where you have to pay attention to notice it, but it adds to that level of immersion when you're playing it. That it's like one of those unconscious things of immersion where you're like, oh, that's really cool. I didn't notice that the first time type of thing.
Yeah.
I was also trying to see. I don't think it is. I was almost wondering if the light was reactive to the gleam on the pistol. I don't think it is. I don't think the N64 was capable of that.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying though, Jiggy. I just saw that the reload and like how the slide cocks back and there's like a little gap where like they actually have like it's fully 3D. It's not like a static 2D image. It's a fully 3D gun that they rendered in an engine.
Guns look better than Goldeneye for sure.
Oh, for sure.
I'm just
for sure.
Like the details, just it's awesome.
The textures of them and everything, right? They actually feel like they have some depth to them. Like you can see that there's different points on them and everything. I think it's and maybe not all the levels are perfect. Maybe they're not all great, but I think they're all pretty varied too, for the most part.
Yes. Oh my God, yeah.
And that makes a huge difference. Not even like level to level, but like in the actual stage itself. Like the subway stage, you go down, you're in the subway. Some parts are dark, some parts are light, and then that part, you for some reason you jump in a hot air balloon, which I don't remember. But like little things like that it makes a difference for sure. And then some of the sort of more stealth levels and stuff also do that. But I don't know. I think there's fully voiced cutscenes as well. Like,
Yep.
that's
There's
cool.
Super hard to do on the N64.
Yeah.
There's one crucial thing we have to talk about though.
Please.
It has loading times.
Mm-hmm.
It has loading screens on the N64.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Like,
yeah,
what's with that? It's like a splash screen of like the movie poster, essentially, is what it is.
Like-
But,
and
yeah.
it doesn't take long to load either. That's the thing. Like it's still pretty fast.
But they exist.
Yeah.
I think that's your point,
They
Jiggy, is that they
exist.
exist.
They exist.
Yeah.
I can't think of any other 64 game that has a loading screen like that.
the only thing I
know.
can think of, and I don't think maybe it's a holdover from the PS1 version, which is different. There are
It's a different
differences
game, yeah.
between the PS1 version. That PS1 version was developed by Black Ops Entertainment, which they were also the developer who did Tomorrow Never Dies, which only came out on the PS1. So what's interesting is that GoldenEye was N64, Tomorrow Never Dies, the next movie, was PS1, and then this one was on both. And actually, I want to say in the PS1 version, you can play like blackjack and stuff like that. It's
Oh.
different. It's it's a little bit different.
I'm gonna
But I think
find it.
I think one thing I adore about this game though is I think you nailed it, Dave, with like how varied the missions are. And I would say, when I was saying before, some of the level design isn't great. Like one of my favorite missions is actually the third one, even though I don't think the level design on the third one is great, because there's lots of like random alleys that you have to take to progress through the level, and they're not really obvious to see.
Is that the docks one?
That's the docks one
Yeah,
after the boat crashes.
Yeah, I don't know why I don't have it on the recording here. I thought I did, but my issue with
like-
that is that they tell you that you have like this grapple hook thing,
Yeah.
and for me, so Jiggy, you were maybe you're nodding your head like you ran into that issue too. I
did as a kid.
I did as an adult, so there you go. I went from the point where you're supposed to use it all the way back to the beginning of the level, looking where I missed and where I needed to go. Partially because of all the alleys and stuff you're talking about. But I realized the second time I did that level, because I think there was a guy that ended up killing me because I had like a sliver of health left. And then someone killed me. I'm like, well, I guess I got to start over and try again anyways. Is that the prompt, the voice prompt from, I think it's Q? I can't remember who it
It's
is.
supposed to be like R or Q, because in The World Is Not Enough, they introduced, so Q, the actor who plays Q is Desmond Llewellyn, and this was his last movie
I was gonna
before
say,
he passed away.
He passed away like a while ago, yeah.
Yeah, not even of old age, even though he was extremely old. He died in a car accident, tragically.
No, what?
So it's not
that
even
that
like,
makes it any worse or better necessarily, but still,
it almost feels like a little bit more bitter, because we could have gotten him for one more
And
movie.
he's
I would have
great.
loved.
He's great.
He is.
Yeah.
And so I think the producers knew since he was getting up there, he may not be around that much longer. So in this movie, they add John Cleese as R, which is why you kind of have this interchanging like dialogue between
intro.
R and and then John Cleese became Q in Die Another Day, the next movie.
Right.
But so you kind of get a little bit. So he does, like, R gives you little bits here and there of dialogue.
Yeah.
And
So whichever
I think
one
might have been the one that gave you the grapple hook.
Yeah, so like they explain the grapple hook in the text thing before the mission starts, but again, you guys talked about the slowdown, which I didn't. It happened to me probably, but not as significantly to me when I was playing it. But for me, the bug or whatever I ran into is that I didn't get the audio prompt to say, "Hey, there's a thing in this area to use the grapple hook. Look up and use it." I didn't get that. So I didn't even know that was an area that I needed that, and I completely forgot that I had that gadget because I was running and gunning up until that point. So that level took me 4 or 5 tries, and it was hard on the middle difficulty, so I kept dying even before I got to that point. And
it's a tough level even on the easy one.
Yeah, it is. There's I noticed that the difficulties in general, when you go from the medium to the easy or whatever, agent or double agent, there's quite a few less enemies, and if you have something like the Magnum, for example, a lot of them die in one shot. So I think it actually lowers a little bit too much. There's sort of a middle ground that it misses, but at least you get to feel like Bond, and you get to go through a lot of the stages and kind of feel like a little bit more of a badass. And I wanted to finish the game. I wanted to get as far and through it as I could, and I did. And I just kept it on the lower difficulty about halfway through, and just was like, okay, this is cool. But I think there was like, and it's hard to get the difficulty perfect. It's not, one of those things. But yeah,
For me, the challenge was never the enemies. The challenge is always completing the objectives in A, the time I needed to, or B, without killing people that I'm not supposed to kill, because it's never really clear who's it. I mean, I had it too, right? Guards would jump around the corner and be like, ah, and I kill them and be like, oh, I got to restart this mission.
Yeah.
And especially when they're longer, kind of more tedious, you do like 3 or 4 tasks, and then you have to restart the whole thing because you accidentally killed a guard, and you get so mad about it.
Make one
so
little
salty.
mistake. Yeah.
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 I will say though, to your defense, with the grapple on the watch,
Yeah, because
right?
you were nodding your head too. Yeah.
it never really explains
How to access it.
How to access it, yeah.
Mm.
Because I had the watch and I was like, I know that I use this.
Yes.
I know
right.
this is where my grapple is. And I saw the thing on the ceiling. I'm like, I know that's what I have to hit. It's got to be that. But then I'm sitting there like, I just have the taser, the lightning, or whatever, and I'm just like, I'm like, why? Like, how can I make this do a grapple? Like, am I electrocuting something to drop something? Am I like, how am I doing this? And then finally,
it's not intuitive.
It's not. It's a combination of buttons. And once you figure it out, you're like, oh, that's actually nice because I don't have to go into another menu.
Well,
and it's not one.
You guys didn't go to a menu, but I always went to a menu, apparently.
But it's not like cycling through. I'm thinking about Nightmare Creatures. Okay.
Yes.
When we played it, and you get items and different things, you have to like stand there and cycle through your weapons and your inventory until you get to what you want to use. And that can be really tedious and take a long time.
That's what I was doing with this. That's basically how I played this, because I didn't know that it was any different.
Yeah, and having that shortcut and the difference between weapons and gadgets, having two separate quick selections was nice.
Although I will say, I will correct this game. I would consider the watch to be a gadget, not a weapon. And yet all the watch stuff is under weapon.
I mean, well, because the dart and the taser, the taser, the laser, and all that other stuff is
taser, blazer,
blazer, and my personal assistant,
my personal consigliere, Michelle.
Consigliere. No, I think the big
that
thing
guy
is,
might really be dead. Dodgeball, people, watch Dodgeball. It's amazing.
If you can dodge a bullet, you can dodge a ball.
Yeah, dodge a ball. I wish Bond had a line like that. That'd be great.
I mean, he's got a pretty shitty line at the end of this movie, which we'll get to. I'll say it even if we don't get to that specific level in the game, I'll say it at the end of the episode because it's awful.
Please do.
So the thing with the grapple hook though is that they don't broadcast at all really where you're supposed to use it, because that's the thing. Like it says look up, but the first time I played it, there was too much happening. I think I was fighting guys still when it came up to it, so I couldn't.
Yeah, there's a couple
hear
guys
him.
there. Yeah,
and so I couldn't hear him, so I didn't know what the hell I was supposed to do. So I just kind of putzed around until I didn't have the internet wasn't a thing back then. I couldn't look it up online. I couldn't look up a long play or anything. So I just had to figure it out. And I don't think it broadcasts it really well. I like how useful the watch is in this game. I really like that between it's and everything gets used. The laser can get used to I think you can use a laser to save bullets and like break off the padlocks. Like instead of shooting a lock off, if you want to be stealth, you can use the laser.
So what's funny is I did that intuitively because in Goldeneye, that's what you have to do at a couple points.
Yeah.
So I did that off the bat. And then at one point, I can't remember if it was one of the levels that I replayed. I didn't have the laser. I'm like, how do I do this? And then I shot it. And I was like, oh, I guess that makes sense.
It's like, duh.
Yeah, all right, of course. Bond guns. I get it. Yeah.
But like at least the reason I like the third level is one, I actually kind of like, as much as the level layout is a little confusing, which is why I don't think the level design is fantastic, specifically with how it teaches. It's meant to teach you to use your watch gadgets more efficiently, and it doesn't do a good job at that. I understand its purpose, but it doesn't really quite nail that objective.
Right.
But I still like that level because of just the overall aesthetic. I don't know. I think one of the things I love about this game is the aesthetics of all the levels I find really endearing. And I don't know if that's nostalgia talking. That could very much be my nostalgia for this game, like kicking into full drive. But like, I love like wandering around the streets of London after in the Thames. I love look in the sixth level, excuse me, exploring around Electra's villa. I love that level so much.
Yeah, I have
Even
that
though
here
it gave me
somewhere,
so much grief as a kid, I hated that level as a kid. I didn't understand what the hell to do. But then once
Me
I
neither.
figured it out, I'm like, okay, so you have to, because I had never played a stealth game up to this point, and that level is pretty damn like pure stealth. Like it incentivizes you to go into the different security buildings so you can take out the security cameras. You can take out any guard that you want either with a knockout dart, or like I said, if you have the stun watch, you can just stun them to distract them, and then when you get up close you keep hitting Z and you'll just punch while you're stunning at the same time, knock them out, and they don't come back.
So am I stupid for assuming that if I punch guys, I thought I would end up killing them? Because I never
No,
did that,
because
because I just used the dart the whole time, and I ran out of darts at a certain point. I'm like, what do I do now?
You're not stupid because the game has taught you to not punch people who aren't bad guys. The game tells you not to punch, like hurt civilians, and you can't kill any of the guards in this mission. It's like, okay, that's fine. But every other level that I'm told not to hurt anybody, if I punch them, I fail the mission. So you've been trained to this point. So I do think this is a little fault of the game design where they have you do one thing for so long. So it's not like a crazy leap to think like, okay, I can't just knock these people out. I figured it out by accident as a kid. I'm like, oh, this is how you beat the level without having to use up all your darts. Because what I was having to do was I was like having to ration my darts. I'm like, okay,
Yes, that's
I
what I
need
did.
to use a
Yeah.
dart on this guy. I absolutely have to use a dart on this guy, especially in the security office. Everyone else, I don't have to worry about.
I was being like extra careful too. I was like, well, I'm gonna crouch around this wall. You can kind of just walk in the shadows, like just
you can just run. Like the I still crouch because it makes I feel like I need to, but it's I love this level because it is a pure stealth level, and in a way, like I feel like it could have been done really poorly. Like a lot of times when games try to mix in stealth with action, they don't do a good job. But I think this one does a really good job, and I really enjoyed it.
and it's tough to do in this era of FPS too, like first person games, because I think that a lot of them ended up being, and GoldenEye is kind of in that as well, just being run and gun, because it's easier to just be like, okay, just run, pull the trigger, switch your weapon, reload, keep going, that kind of thing. And sure, the property of James Bond is kind of like that, but James Bond's also stealth. Like he also needs to be sneaky a lot of the time, and they made that a reality in this one. I didn't expect it because I didn't really remember the movie, and I was like, okay, great, I like this. I think this level in particular is a little too complex on the higher difficulties. This is the one where I was like, okay, I got to bring it down one notch because there's too many guys. I don't have enough darts. I wasn't punching guys, like I said. I was still kind of figuring out the game. And I was like, I got to take this down a notch. It's still a long level. There's lots of complex things you have to do. And it's a good one. But I think unless you're playing on the lowest difficulty, it's a little too tricky in my mind. But I like the idea of it. And there's multiple ones with similar ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the cool thing about this is this game, with the stealth options and the gadget options, you said it earlier, Josh, but I just want to say, like, you feel like a spy. You really do. You feel it feels different than GoldenEye, and GoldenEye is a run and gun. This has elements of games like Siphon Filter, Splinter Cell, kind of those early stealth shooter games, and it combines that with the run and gun style of GoldenEye. So you kind of get a little bit of both worlds, and I think that's what makes it a little more unique.
Yeah.
And I like it.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, Siphon Filter is a good pull too, because that game has a lot of, I only played the first two, I think, but especially the first one, very early, sort of PS1 era, third person. But that is like, oh, you can be stealth at this point. Oh, there's elements of you having to be careful with your resources and your run and gun and stuff. And that's definitely what this feels like. I didn't even think of that, but it's just a first person version in a lot of ways of what those games were or have been. So, yeah, I don't know. It's good. There's a lot of weapons too. Like even this particular level, whichever level number this is, 7, 8, something like that. You're sort of like in a forest or whatever. Now you have a fucking crossbow, which is cool. Takes guys out in like one shot. Like that's fun.
And it's stealth too. It's an extra stealth weapon.
Yeah, right. And this one's like a mix of you can do this run and gun at some point, but you can. I think I set that alarm off by accident. I'm like,
just blows up the alarm.
well, you know what I did because I wasn't sure what it was, so I think I pressed B or A or whatever the interact button is, and it set the alarm off, and I was like, oh shit, I gotta shoot it.
What is it? One of my favorite things of this era is how especially it's specific to GoldenEye and The World Is Not Enough, like N64 James Bond games. Anything that's electronic is explosive. Yeah. You shoot a computer monitor, it's got like a 10-foot blast radius. You got to be a little far away from that, otherwise you're gonna get hurt.
Yeah,
and I know that doesn't make any logical sense, and it's nothing but nostalgia speaking for me here, but I fucking love that. It's so silly.
It's even better in GoldenEye. It's like a desk chair will blow up and like the stupidest things.
And like glass shatters everywhere. Like there's just glass coming out of a chair.
Just over the top.
I love when we were talking about that too with GoldenEye, where we were just like, everything explodes. Like that. Yeah. The discussion at that point is just, and everyone knows what that means, like you're saying. It's just everything explodes. And like, oh yeah, the desk chair and the desk explodes. Like, of course it does.
You know what I didn't try in this game? I never even thought about it. Can you write things on the wall with the bullet holes?
Oh, I didn't try that. Oh, damn.
I think maybe a little bit, but the bullets will eventually go away.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it did in GoldenEye too, but you got a surprising amount in before they would start going away.
Yeah.
You could definitely draw things.
Yeah. Damn it, I didn't draw any bullet dicks.
Okay.
Let me say something, okay? Because I remembered a crucial detail while I was watching this gameplay.
Yeah.
It's very specific, but it annoys. It's just so annoying. What? Who? Why is B button yes and A is no?
Oh.
Why the heck would you make that your options?
Green is go, baby.
So okay,
that makes sense.
I have no idea.
No, so you know what it is at some points it's that and some points it's not. That's why it's confusing. When you go in the menu and you want to pick your gadgets or you want to go to the options or something like that, A is to select. When you want to like save your game or restart, so you don't accidentally press it, they switch the buttons. That's why.
Yeah, but that's so annoying because it's like save. Do you want to save? Yes, B. No, A. And then you press B, yes. And then to select the folder, you have to hit A.
Yeah, so I did that the first time I played this game. I played maybe the first 2 levels the first time I picked it up. And I thought I saved the game. And I didn't because I pressed A instead of B or B instead of A. And I was like, son of a bitch. And that's when I realized that's what they did.
I saved on level 2 when I got to like level 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And I went back to my playthrough today. I went back to my playthrough and I was like,
what happened?
What happened? I was so mad.
What's funny is as a kid, I didn't have the controller pack that allowed you to save, so I had to play this game in a one shot.
Yeah, I didn't have one for the longest time. Like I think we may have had one, but like it is with all the games sort of around this time, or the consoles around this time, it was like whatever the pages or blocks or magic whatever squares, whatever they decided to call them. That's how this operates, right? It's one of those.
Yeah.
So I saved twice. I was like, I gotta be careful. I don't want to screw this up. It's fine. I'm okay playing the earlier levels. I still think the early stuff is still pretty good. Like I don't think necessarily that the game gets exponentially better as you go on as far as the levels go. I mean, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I found the middle section, like this level in particular, was pretty good. I liked that subway level was fun. I liked the second one. Like, I don't think there was like one area of the game where I was like, this was the one that stood out to me. I think it was a pretty even keel across the way. That. Yeah, and Yeah, not everything's going to be a standout, but that's okay. Not everything's a standout in Goldeneye either. But it's
The
there's more going on
the
here.
only level that stood out to me, and it's not because I think the level itself stands out. It's literally because I loved the movie so much.
Yeah.
There's it's the mission after the one we are currently watching. So right now, Bond has escaped from Elektra's villa, and now
mansion,
you're
yeah.
chasing after Davidoff, which is her like head of security, and you're basically going undercover as you're trailing Davidoff to figure out what he's up to because he's shady as hell, right? And so you kill Davidoff and you take his place, and that happens in the movie. Bond kills Davidoff and takes his place, and he goes onto an airplane and poses as Davidoff, and just to find out like what not even as Davidoff, he says, "Oh, Davidoff, I'm taking his place." He tells the guys that he's taking his place.
Yeah, the guy in the plane. Yeah,
exactly. And so what happens is they go to this nuclear bomb site in like Kazakhstan or something like that, and he has to. Davidoff is basically someone who is pretending to be this nuclear physicist, like this nuclear technician, Dr. Emil Arkov or something like that. Or maybe not Emil, but Arkov is his last name.
yeah.
And he has to decommission these nuclear bombs. And that's kind of like what the whole purpose of it is. Well, in that next mission, in the movie, like chaos breaks out very similarly to how it does in the mission. The lines are in some different orders. I'm not going to be that nerdy and say,
Please be nerdy. Remember the nerdy stuff I was talking about with Toy Story?
It's a little bit too
all over the
nerdy.
place.
It's not interesting. There's like nerdy and then there's interesting nerdy, and it's not interesting nerdy. So so you get to you confront the terrorist Renard there, and that's where the firefight breaks out and everything, and that's where also we meet the Bond girl of the movie, Christmas Jones, played by Denise Richards. Christmas Jones.
Yeah.
You know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna say what Bond's shitty line was at the end of the movie right now because it's a pun on her name.
Oh,
so
is it?
after
Oh, boy.
after Bond saves the day and all the bad guys have lost, and MI6 and the good guys have won, they're trying to find 007, and they're using a satellite reader to like see his like body heat, and all of a sudden you see like there's his car. Now where's 007? And they go up to the building, and
God.
you see this body heat, and that you see him laying down. It's like, oh, he's lying down. But where's Dr. Jones? It's getting redder. And then all of a sudden a third leg pops out. So it like Dr. Jones' legs pops out the side, so it looks like it's a third leg from the top. And M goes 007, and they turn it off, and then it cuts to Bond and Christmas like I guess after it must be post coitus because they're sharing champagne as fireworks are going off in the background.
As you
and
do.
the final
That's
line
just a
of
Friday
the
in
movie,
this house. So
the final line of the movie is, "I thought Christmas only came once a year." I'm dead serious. It's so bad. I did not.
It's bad, but I think that's great.
It's apparently I was too young to see this movie in theaters.
Sure.
Apparently, from other people other podcasts I've listened to, they've claimed the other hosts that the audience audibly groaned when that line was uttered.
Oh.
Yeah,
I mean,
they did not like it.
It's as cheesy as you could possibly get. Like it's too easy. You know what I mean? Like it feels like you're not even trying with a line like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
No. This is not even trying. At least there was some creative, like tried to make a
pun,
innuendo about it.
Yeah.
This was, they could have just been like, "Merry Christmas." That's lazy.
Yeah.
I love Christmas.
Christmas is my favorite holiday.
Yeah,
Where's my
exactly.
present?
Yeah.
Well, I think the reason it fell so flat was because Brosnan's movies kind of skirt a line a little bit. They tread a specific line where they go serious and they go campy. So they kind of try to balance the seriousness that Timothy Dalton had in his movies with the campiness that Roger Moore had in his movies. And they don't quite get the dynamic right. Sometimes they do. Goldeneye, I think they nail it really well. I actually think they overall in this movie nail it pretty well, but it's neither here nor there. I'm going off another Bond tangent.
It's tricky, right? Because these games and these movies at this time are still very 90s, even though it's 2000, 2003, whatever, the next one was. Like, it's hard to shake that because Bond has always been sort of a mix, like you're saying. And It's hard. I don't envy them because like how do you
No.
it's the whole problem that they're running into with the franchise in general right now is like how do you modernize it without losing what it's been for the last 50 years? You know, so I get it. Like I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I was going to say, before, just to kind of wrap up my full thoughts on that, the level that stood out to me, because that's how I got off on this whole tangent,
I think I
was
have
that
one on here somewhere.
in that level, after all the shit goes south and you chase after Renard and you're trying to get the detonator back and all this other stuff, you get to him at an elevator and he basically says like, you almost had me, and he starts going up the elevator, and then you see a bomb about to blow up and you have
Right.
5 seconds to get out. In the movie, the very similar thing happens. Bond turns around and just yells to Christmas Jones, like, run. And he runs and sprints and grabs onto 2 chains and uses
and
the
he goes-
rails and goes down the length while the explosions were happening behind them. And in the game, you do the exact same thing. There's a yellow board, this very clear yellow board that I don't think is obvious enough. Like, if you haven't seen the movie, it might be a little confusing, I feel like.
I
But
didn't do it at first. I didn't do it.
Exactly.
First time.
And since I saw the movie, I noticed it. I went, are they going to let me do that? It felt like I was in the movie. And that's why that level stuck out to me, because that was my favorite scene in the movie when I was a kid. And I got to completely reenact it within the world of the game. One of my favorite moments in gaming for me.
Nice.
Man,
yeah.
that's like the tank in Goldeneye. That's what that makes me think
Mhm.
of.
Right.
Similar thing, because you could actually go through the street and not take the tank at all. But
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's
cool.
this level confused me at first because I was like, oh, where do I go? I didn't know. I couldn't remember. Like, oh, I gotta look for Christmas Jones or whatever. So I don't know. I failed this a couple times. Like, I pulled the gun out by accident. No one can see me. Abort mission. What?
Sounded the Grinch song. Where are you, Christmas? Why can't I find you?
Why aren't you coming?
Twice a year.
Oh, gosh.
All right.
Whoa, that
So
guy's buff.
yeah, this guy's jacked. Like he's ready
Look
to
at his
just
forearms. Whoa.
yeah.
I wouldn't mess with him.
He's and all he wants to do is see your paperwork. That's it. Like, they're really serious about their paperwork.
He looks like Kronk.
Oh my
Emperor's New
god.
Groove.
Oh,
It's
where's
like,
my
"Your
Kronk's
papers, sir."
upstairs. Oh damn. He does look like Kronk. Like Putty. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a Kronk, or had it. Maybe it's upstairs. I have a Kronk from Emperor's New Groove with his woodland theme and a squirrel in his hand.
Poison.
Yeah.
Poison
Yeah.
for Cusco. Cusco's poison.
That
Boy
poison.
poison.
Yes, that poison. Right. I love that.
Right.
Best
Peter.
animated Disney movie.
Oh!
Best animated Disney movie. I'll say it. It's the best.
It's one of my favorites for sure.
Yeah. Also came out in 2000, like this game. There you go.
Perfect.
So 007, World Is Not Enough. Obviously, a huge thing for Mr. Still Loading there. Going back to it, how did it feel? Did you was it like a glove? Did you put it on and it was like, all right, this feels right. This still feels pretty good. Or is most of your love for this still kind of stuck in 2000 or 2001? Like, what's the general wrap up sort of feel of like how it was this time?
I would say about 80% of it was still fun for me. And the
Nice.
other 20% was like, okay, there's a little bit of nostalgia making me blind to some of the flaws of this.
Mhm.
Like, I'm not saying it's a perfect game, but I think that the crazy amount of gadgets that it gives you, the variety of
Sorry,
levels.
I just
the-
punched Christmas in the face and now she disappeared.
But the crazy amount of variety of levels and weapons and gadgets, and the way it makes you feel like a spy and you can feel like
Mhm.
James Bond, and the fact that it has so many different moments that mimic the movie in a really good way, whether it's that explosion in the nuclear bunker, even the final level of like you having to swim through this maze of
Oh, yeah,
like
that was good.
sunken in the underwater in the submarine, and you have to find the different pockets and swim through it. That's like what happens in the movie. Bond has to, like, the submarine's flooding and Bond actually has to leave the submarine and then swim to the other side and go in through a different dock, and then Christmas Jones has to like drain that dock so that way he'll be able to breathe again, and then he can get to Renard and finish off the job.
Yeah.
They kind of circumvent that. Instead of going outside the sub, you have to explore within the sub.
It worked,
but
though.
it was still really
I
cool.
liked that level. It was good. I liked it.
And what I think is interesting is that they don't rely on just combat to make the gameplay interesting.
Right.
Whether it's stealth, whether it's exploration, or whether it's combat, they do a good job at varying it enough. I do find it a little funny, like 'cause in the level we're watching now, you have to show your like papers to everyone, and they do this in Medal of Honor too, where you have to hit the action button to kind of flash them, and like you're holding them out clearly for people to see, but you still do a little just to be like, hey, look at it.
Yeah,
Look,
his hand
almost
just
like you're trying to slap him
twitches.
with it.
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
Take it.
Is this what you want to see?
but yeah, I love this game still. I still think it actually it holds up similarly to how GoldenEye holds up, where like if you go into it knowing the controls are going to be dated, it's really like when people talk about how GoldenEye hasn't held up well, I actually kind of disagree with that, because it's like it's not held up on the control scheme portion of it. I will 100% agree with that. But if you get used to the controls, the game is designed around that control scheme. So if you can get used to the controls, the game becomes playable. It's just that you have to get used to a different set of controls. I remember playing this and just being like expert at being able to use the strafe while looking at the same time. And so it never felt like I was actually like disadvantaged in terms of how to control the character.
I thought the strafing was totally fine. I thought it worked.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like my hands were jumbled on the controller.
No,
I had no problem with the controls in this. Partially is because, you know, we were talking about the auto aim. I know that does definitely help with that, but like, I don't know, the system they created with the aiming, to me, it was never a major issue outside of the first few minutes that I got used to how the game controls, you know.
And that's why I always say, like, I don't think GoldenEye and in turn this are as dated as people say they are. Graphics, obviously, yes, because it's the N64, but that's a dumb argument because it's an older system. Like, I if you don't like them, that's fair. That's totally valid, and it's an argument to not like them. You're entitled to what you like. But I don't think, like we were saying, this is a good looking N64 game compared to its contemporaries. The controls honestly are really not bad. They're responsive. Once you get used to the control scheme, the game is designed around it, and the levels are varied enough that it's just fun. I still think this game is honestly really good, and I'm actually honestly more curious to what you guys think. And I know, Jiggy, you played it before as a kid, so I'm really curious about Dave, since Dave has no nostalgia. He has no ties to this, so I'm really excited to hear your thoughts on this.
I'll go to Jiggy first. What did you think, man?
It holds up.
Yeah.
I think it did a lot of things right. I liked the varying gameplay. I thought the graphics looked great. A few leg spikes, but I'm used to that. Really, I love the gadgets. I love the quick selection. I definitely never beat this as a kid, but you know, some of the missions I was like, oh yeah, I remember this. I probably did the first mission like 50 times though. Like I remember that one pretty thoroughly. It's pretty cool. But yeah, overall, I think it holds up pretty well. I got no complaints really.
Yeah, so for me, I don't have nostalgia for the game. I have very little nostalgia for the movie. I'm sure if I rewatch the movie, like you've mentioned a couple of the scenes since we've been talking, like, oh yeah, okay, I kind of remember that, or oh yeah, I kind of remember that part. Not knowing what movie it was from, just being like, oh, it's one of the I shot a guy again by accident because I couldn't tell who he was. And I was, yeah, so I come into this pretty blank, and I thought I was pleasantly surprised. I thought it was going to, because I'm used to GoldenEye and thinking, okay, that's what I'm going to compare it to the whole time, but very quickly I realized this is its own game and it's not trying to mimic it. It controls differently. It looks really good. I think it's impressive that they have voice acting in it. Even though I'm not comparing it to the scenes from the movie because I didn't have those in my mind, I thought the set pieces were pretty fun. And, you know, a couple jumbles of trying to figure out how to beat each level. I'm sure that's what I would have done when I was a kid trying to play this game or GoldenEye for the first time. How do I beat this sequence? How do I beat this sequence? yeah, as an adult, I'm like, oh man, like I wish I could just get through this part. I wish I could just have a checkpoint and not have to start from the very beginning. So what? You know, it's the age of the game and stuff. That's just how things went. Overall, I thought this game was great. I thought it was excellent. I really honestly thought it was great. I think it looked great, like you guys said. The controls, like I mentioned before, were totally fine with me. And aside from just like small bits feeling dated, I would play this game again, no problem. I thought it was great. Partially, you know, if you go in with no expectations or not really even knowing what the game offered, I think that's kind of a good way of doing this. And just even if you have experience with GoldenEye, just don't expect it to be the exact same game, and you'll be able to have a really. It's not, and I don't think it's trying to be either, and I think that's a good thing. So I think I really liked it.
It's an interesting comparison because
Mhm.
I feel like if I had to choose, like push came to shove,
Yeah, right.
like the single player experience, I'd prefer this game, but the multiplayer experience, I'd prefer GoldenEye.
Okay, I never played this
Right?
multiplayer, so I can't compare. But
I did briefly.
Okay.
I don't know. There's something, the run and gun aspect, which that feels more. It just feels a little different, like maybe a little more fluid. There's something about it in GoldenEye that feels a little bit better.
I think it's the engine. Whatever engine they created to this, I don't have the name of it that they made. It's different. It doesn't work on the same engine, doesn't run on the same engine, so they're able to do different things. And fluid's a good way to put it. I do think the game definitely felt fluid. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, but it's good. It's just you're always going to compare those two because they're the N64 titles.
I was going to ask what you guys thought, like GoldenEye over this. I will say the one last thing, just because you mentioned the multiplayer. I have more nostalgia for this multiplayer than GoldenEye, which I know is odd because almost everyone else is like GoldenEye is like the multiplayer, like FPS multiplayer for the N64. But one thing I love about I thought about this weapon's in the multiplayer, which is why I thought about it. But you also get in one of the missions. There's a laser guided rocket launcher in this that you don't get in GoldenEye. And what's cool is if you turn it's an alternate fire method. So you know how like you can put the silencer on the Walther PPK or whatever. You can turn on the laser, and if you turn on the laser and then hold down R to aim, and you can adjust the aiming reticule. When you fire and then move the reticule, the rocket will move where you will move towards the laser. So if you want to shoot it technically around a corner, you can do that. You can also like shoot it like at one direction, and if you see the guy suddenly dart the other direction, as long as you're holding that button down and the laser's on, you can push the laser over to the direction they're going, and the missile will go to where the laser's at.
Yeah.
So it was like that's kind of technically impressive to think about on the N64 for multiplayer as well. You can have up to 4 people technically shooting laser guided missiles at each other in this game. Cool. I've never tested that. I don't know what the frame rate would be trying to compute all that.
Yeah, that's probably But still, but you can do it. It gives you the option to. Like I had with that quote a while ago, where it's like, "Oh, I don't think we could have pushed this any further." I think that's obvious. Like there's a lot here, a lot going on, a lot to offer. It's a really good game. And I think if anyone hasn't played it, whether you're like nostalgic for GoldenEye or not, I think this game is worth playing either way, especially if you haven't played it before like I did. I think I'm confident in saying that you'll be pleasantly surprised. And it doesn't feel as dated as I thought it would, honestly. And that's what happens. You get a little bit of juice extra out of the console and the cartridges when you're later in the life cycle. I think it makes a huge difference. So
you'll feel like a spy.
You'll feel
2 for 2 on hidden gems for this Toy Story 2 and this.
I know, and I hadn't played either. Yeah, right. I think this is great. Thanks for bringing the game to my attention, and I'm happy we were able to play it. 007, The World Is Not Enough. Check it out. And until anyone does, or until we get you back on the show, or if anyone wants to check out your stuff, tell us a little bit about Still Loading, sir.
All right. Well, the Still Loading podcast is my video game podcast. I've been doing it for I don't know when this comes out, but if it's after the time that we're expecting it to, I've had my 10th anniversary of the show. It's been going on for 10 years, which is just
Wow.
well, dude. I started the show when I was 25, and now I'm an old 35-year-old
boy.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
that's awesome.
So yeah,
I
10 years.
didn't know you 10 years. Wow.
Yeah, it was on and off. I won't go into the whole history here of it. I might talk. I'll talk about that on the 10th anniversary episode, but which is yet to be recorded at the time we're recording this. But yeah, 10 years of still loading. It's a video game grab bag podcast, as I describe it. I do deep dive retrospectives on individual games. I interview people in the industry. I do goofy, wonky ideas. Like later on this year. Though once again, don't know when this is coming out, but later on this year, in August of 2024, I have an episode coming out. Either it will be coming out or it has already come out, called the Final Fantasy Draft, which is what happens when Final Fantasy and fantasy sports meet. And I always get a bunch of I always get a bunch of cool guests for it, and it's just this big Final Fantasy fest of just love for the series. It's a lot of fun, and where the guests try to draft their ideal Final Fantasy, but since it's like a sports draft, if someone drafts a specific aspect, like if someone wants Cloud in their game, no one else can have Cloud. If someone wants oh my gosh, a Terra in their game, no one else can have Terra, stuff like that. So that's kind of like a lot of the stuff that I do. It's deep dive retrospectives, interviews, wonky ideas, and things of that nature. So yeah, that's the Still Loading podcast. You can find it on wherever you get your podcasts at: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify. Because I guess Google Podcasts is done now. It's YouTube Music.
Yeah, everything's moved to that. Yeah.
Something like that. But yeah, you can find it there and on social media at Still Loading Pod, pretty much everywhere: Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, and at Still Loading Podcast on YouTube.
Amazing.
At Still Loading Pod on Twitch as well.
Ah, there we go. Nice. Jiggy, how goes it, bud? What's the latest?
It goes it. Just the grind, the
grind.
YouTube grind, ever growing, ever putting out videos about Donkey Kong 64 and other rare titles.
Diddy Kong Racing. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Diddy Kong Racing was the latest one. I'm working on a Star Fox Adventures Dinosaur Planet video.
Nice.
So just cool stuff going on there. Just go look me up on YouTube. All my other socials you can find on my YouTube, but just go on my YouTube because that's the best one.
Yeah, it's great stuff.
That's maximum effort right there.
That's where the maximum effort is. Yeah,
yeah,
that's a good way to put it. So if you want to find Remember 64 with maximum effort, I would say it's probably between the YouTube and just the podcast feed. But Remember 64 show across social media. And then we have a Patreon as well where you can support the show, get every episode early. And I'm doing my best to have extra time to do extra stuff, but it's really hard. Life is very busy at the moment, but I will continue to keep trying to do everything I can to add extra content. But that's where you can find Remember 64 all over your podcast feeds and YouTube especially. But that'll pretty much do it for this time, gentlemen. Thank you so much for bringing the game to the show. And thanks for coming on. We'll hopefully have you soon, and we'll play another. Maybe this time it'll be something that you haven't played. That's what we got to find. We're gonna try and
there's definitely a bunch I have not played,
okay.
So I guarantee you'll be able to find something.
I mean, honestly,
I got a good one.
Yeah. Okay. There we go. All right. We're gonna do that. So look forward to it. We're gonna have something. We'll keep it secret until we actually unveil of what it is. But we'll keep this train rolling as the year goes on. And thanks everyone for listening. We will see you next time on Remember 64.